There were an unfathomable amount of Johns, but this decrease was still concerning. One John in particular had a vendetta against the 10th Legion. This John revealed himself to Nuent, informing him that he was John Arena. He invented the arena that Nuent previously went to, but it was now being put out of business due to the 10th Legion's arena. They began to argue, and this argument divided all but two of the Johns into two even sides, those who supported the 10th Legion, and those who supported John Arena. Even though the 10th Legion and John Arena had not yet begun to fight, the Johns that supported them soon brought out into minor fights, quickly spiraling into a full-blown war. Johns used highly advanced technology as war machines, creating a conflict that literally and figuratively destroyed the John HQ. The 10th Legion began to battle John Arena, who was targeting the Johns that were official parts of the 10th Legion. He eventually knocked all of them out, leaving him and Nuent, though he took a beating in the process. Due to John Arena being in this weakened state, Nuent was able to get more hits on John Arena than John Arena could get on him. The fight still wasn't easy, but after sustaining some injuries, Nuent blasted John Arena with an extremely powerful blast of energy, and though this didn't kill him, Nuent picked him up and threw him into the mass of battling Johns beneath them. Nuent helped the other Johns who were in the 10th Legion recovered, and they hopped into the fight below. Even with all the Johns being tightly compact together, as dense as a crowd at a concert, they still took up a space equal to several hundreds of universes, mostly due to how many Johns there really were. Johns continued to use extremely powerful weapons to fight the war, and after hours, they finally agreed to peace. They would have done so earlier, but many did not believe the news that John Arena had been defeated. Once they agreed to peace, they tried searching for John Arena, but did not find any trace, meaning he had most likely been disintegrated from the battling. After giving the Johns who supported John Arena a timeout, all the surviving Johns, which was surprisingly most of them, as they were extremely durable, agreed to join the 10th Legion after merging into a few bodies so that they didn't take up much space. This was a huge increase in power, but there were still the two Johns that didn't pick any sides. The 10th Legion began discussing this, but then one of the two appeared, John Vegas. John Vegas was a special John, as he was the only John in the council who didn't invent something. He was only here cause everyone else liked his vibes. He was the second most powerful John, with the most powerful being the other neutral John. John Vegas was a pretty chill dude, but did have a problem, which was that he lost his 8 crystal dances. He agreed to join the 10th Legion, but only if they would collect his 8 crystal dances. They complied, and after John Vegas joined them, they set off on a quest. The first of the 8 crystal dances was just in between the cushions at John Vegas' house. Each crystal dance had the power to track one of the other crystal dances, so using this power they figured out the location of the second crystal dance, which was in a chicken egg painted to resemble Alec Baldwin, although the painting was done sloppily. I mean, that is not what Alec Baldwin's eyelashes look like. The third was at the bottom of a well created to sustain a baby Gronk farm, the fourth was under there, the fifth was guarded by the woman from Courage the Cowardly Dog who joined the 10th Legion, the sixth was in the heart of a jungle on top of the pinky toe of a person who didn't own an air fryer, and the seventh at a lake made of George stew. As for the 8th dance, it was more complicated. Instead of the seventh giving its location, all the other 7 dances had to be put together. This created a summoning circle, and something began appearing. It emerged from a pillar of fire in the middle of the 7 dances, and was John, the last of the Johns, and the inventor of Johns. John was almost unfathomably powerful to even the 10th Legion, so they knew they couldn't simply fight him. John told them that he had the 8th crystal dance, but in order to receive it, the 10th Legion would have to beat him at unicycle hockey. Unicycle hockey was an intense game, and John was extremely skilled. He would have won, but the 10th Legion cheated by separating the consciousnesses within Nuent into their own bodies, beating him with sheer quantity. This earned John's respect, and he gave them the 8th crystal dance, and even joined the 10th Legion, multiplying their total power several times over. With all 8 crystal dances collected, John Vegas also officially joined, becoming even more powerful, nearly as much as John. Nuent reformed, everything with the John HQ was now settled. The 10th Legion remembered the only reason that they did this was to get more power while waiting on their arena, so they went back, and were shocked. While the Safuvers had many similar arenas, most of the popular ones were for less powerful people, and the few that were even remotely active for people as powerful as the 10th Legion were extremely old. However, the 10th Legion's arena had massively boomed in popularity, quickly becoming renowned across the Safuvers. And you know what else is massive? The low taper fade mim. They checked out the waiting room of people who had amassed enough points, which was significantly more than they expected. They told these people about their battle against Deodar Clipseverett and how they were involved with some of the most powerful beings in the Safuvers, pleading with the people here to join them. This tactic was effective, and the majority of the people in the waiting room joined the 10th Legion, and the rest were simply let go, and the system of points was abolished, taking the special tier and waiting room with it. The 10th Legion had many more members, some even as powerful, and a few even more powerful than John, the current strongest member. All of these members were Mr. Blue Sky, Tung Sahur, Pop Bob, who had also merged with the rest of 2B2T, Brody from Yo Mama, Limu Emu, and Doug, a person who owns an air fryer, the fallen withered urine Chungus, Power Lever 999, the skull emoji, the dying rose emoji, Levi from House Arrest, Minnie Bezos, Rocket Savathide, Jessica Sandwich, Adam Lawabiter, the back of Gryan's Castle, the real Slim Shady, the fake Fat Brighty, the Glob Glogab Galab, Cheese Ball from the Easiest Game On, Roblox, Sanford from Madness Combat, Ed from Foundations, Ari from One, Keemstar S Dog, Ziggy Stardust, Stan Mitchell, WhatsApp Invincible, Cooking with Fred, Major Tom, comically exaggerated Lego Baron Harkonnen minifigure, The One Who Knocks, Plymouth Rock, the answer to the Wordle on March 31 of 2025, Non-Existy, Block Blast, 1 Gorilla, 100 Men, and a conveniently shaped lamp. With the 10th Legion now having this many people, they felt fairly confident. They realized though, that as one last measure of preparation, they should try and get help from Darpamoril and Thuotes. They went to Darpamoril first, but after managing to telepathically speak to him, he told them that he had already tried to kill Aggregate, but that Aggregate still was using the spell that blocked his power. The 10th Legion told him about Deodar Clipseverett, but Darpamoril was unable to sense his location, meaning the spell didn't work on him either. The 10th Legion then asked Darpamoril why he didn't save Nuent when he was fighting Aggregate, and Darpamoril replied that he could foresee that Aggregate would die no matter what, so he didn't care whether or not the 10th Legion survived. The 10th Legion were about to reply, but Darpamoril, annoyed, stopped communication. They tried to reach him again, but to no avail, meaning that they had essentially just cut ties with Darpamoril, as they couldn't contact him now. Slightly disheartened, the 10th Legion then teleported to the meeting room of Thuotes. The members of Thuotes then came out, and the 10th Legion asked for power to defeat Deodar Clipseverett. Surprisingly, a member of Thuotes agreed, and gave them power. This power was useful, but not as much as the 10th Legion expected, only about doubling their total power. They asked for more, and suddenly all the members of Thuotes looked extremely concerned. After a few seconds, Nguyen tried to break the silence by asking if the members of Thuots could finally properly introduce themselves, which Thuots agreed to. The first member was Agent P, who was a demon wearing heavy clothes, including a gas mask, to hide the fact that he was a demon. He was set on maintaining order and balance, being very neutral. The next was Officer A, a snake-like creature with purple spikes that attempted to get as powerful as possible without doing anything blatantly evil. Then was Founder N, who, as his title implied, founded Thuots. He had his seat at the center of the meeting table, and was a gargantuan, green beast who was remarkably vile. General N was perhaps the most abstract, his body appearing as flashing colors, gaseous material, and rapidly forming and disappearing shapes that broke the laws of geometry and physics. His face and horns floated upon this material, and he had a worn suit. He was also one of the kindest members. Another was Sergeant R, a humanoid figure made of bright, white flames, having one eye and one horn. He was quiet, and not particularly good or evil, though slightly more good. Octad Pod, from within Nuent, recognized him as the one who had the Cephaversal transmogrifier. Also, there was Sensei Is, who had a hand for a head. His body was pitch black except for a large eye in the center, and there were also large eyes in all of his palms. While not as bad as Founder N, he was still certainly evil, though he did have a strong friendship with Sergeant R, who sometimes acted as his moral compass. The second to last was Lieutenant D, a figure in green robes, who was humanoid, except for his head, which was a black sphere with a giant mouth, and a singular eye within the mouth. He had 4 horns, each resembling a card suit. Last was Commander Y, who was the only one other than Founder N who was special. He had known Founder N for as long as they lived, and was involved in the creation of Thuots. He was similar to Founder N too, being evil, though unlike Founder N, he at the very least cared for other Thuots members and had a sense of honor. While this was all of them, they mentioned that there were 3 people in the process of becoming members, and they showed pictures of these 3. The first was a skeletal being named King M, who had a noticeable crack over his eye, large horns, and a crown. The other 2 looked fairly similar, and Lieutenant D confirmed that they were actually of the same species. The first, Emperor E, had a large eye, supported a lightning bolt for a body. He had a large beard, horns, and a crown. He was the ruler of the species that he and the other upcoming member were, though the other one was the most powerful. Truly last was Lord I, who had an eye with horns just like Emperor E. His body, though, was a purple pillar with 3 black stripes. Thuots did not say much else about these 3 members. The 10th Legion now returned to asking for more power, making all the members seem uneasy, and Founder N particularly enraged. Founder N stood up, and in a surprisingly calm and polite manner, told the 10th Legion to follow him. They did, and he took them just outside of the meeting room. He took back the power that Thuots had given to the 10th Legion, and proceeded to do some sort of scan. After the scan was done, he stared in silence with an angry expression on his face. He went back into the meeting room, and told another member something. The 10th Legion overheard this, and it was an order to attack and kill the 10th Legion, as they were growing in power too fast. The 10th Legion were about to run, but they were suddenly teleported to an arena with Sensei Is. Magic worked here, but teleportation didn't. Before they could speak, Sensei Is shot out a beam of energy at them. This damaged some members severely, but did not kill any. Sensei Is looked almost petrified, as he didn't expect them to be just this powerful. As he began to conjure up a new attack, the 10th Legion realized they had to fight. They all temporarily merged into Nuent, and began to battle. Without warning, Sensei Is darted forward, a flurry of strikes aimed directly at Nuent's vital points. Nuent parried the first few blows, but Sensei's movements were relentless, a rhythmic onslaught of expertly placed attacks. Nuent managed to catch Sensei's wrist mid-strike, only to be spun and thrown backwards. Landing on his feet, Nuent countered with a burst of energy that sent debris spiraling toward Sensei. Dodging with inhuman speed, Sensei is retaliated with a concentrated energy strike, grazing Nuent's shoulder. The fight intensified, both fighters blurring through subversal energy, exchanging blows with ferocious speed. Sensei is struck with a mix of martial prowess and elemental power, forcing Nuent to constantly adapt. Finally, in a critical moment, Nuent anticipated a sweeping kick, caught Sensei by the ankle, and slammed him into the ground with a shockwave that rattled the surroundings. Sensei is lay motionless, unconscious but breathing. Nuent barely had a moment to catch his breath when he sensed more presences. One by one, the rest of Thuots appeared, encircling him: Agent P, Officer A, Founder N, General N, Lieutenant D, Sergeant R, and Commander Y. Their collective energy surged, and without hesitation, they attacked as one. Chaos erupted. Nuent was forced to split his focus among the coordinated strikes of the group. Agent P weaved through the air, launching precision projectiles that curved around Nuent's defenses. Officer A charged in, his physical prowess unmatched, landing a heavy blow to Nuent's midsection. Founder N orchestrated the assault with calculated movements, directing General N to lay down suppressive energy fields. Lieutenant D unleashed volleys of plasma, and Sergeant R supported with barrier constructs that pushed Nuent back. Commander Y struck with heavy, earth-shaking blows, forcing Nuent to retreat. Nuent moved like a hurricane, darting between attacks, retaliating with powerful shockwaves and bursts of energy. He kicked Agent P out of the sky, only to be tackled by Officer A spinning. He sent Lieutenant D crashing into Sergeant R, but was then caught in a gravitational field cast by General N. Founder N seized the opportunity to strike at Nuent's core, but Nuent tore free, unleashing a blast that scattered them. Thuots regrouped instantly, forming a protective circle, and their combined power surged. Nuent channeled his energy, preparing for their next coordinated strike. They came from all angles, Commander Y breaking through the ground itself, Officer A from above, Agent P from the flanks, and the others in a synchronized rush. Nuent braced, his power surging to its peak. He unleashed a spiraling dome of force, catching them all and forcing them back. Even as they staggered, Thuots refused to yield. With one final, united charge, they broke through Nuent's defense, pummeling him with a relentless combination of power and technique. Nuent could feel his strength waning, but with a blast of energy, he forced his power outward, a shockwave that destroyed the entire arena. When the dust settled, Thuots lay scattered, defeated but alive. Nuent, breathing heavily, remained standing, his form flickering from the strain. One by one, the members of Thuots acknowledged his strength, reluctantly bowing their heads. Though battered, Nuent had won, his dominance unquestioned. The 10th Legion, splitting into themselves, now knew the reason Thuots couldn't give him much power. They had become slightly more powerful than Thuots combined. The 10th Legion then told Founder N to give the power he gave them back, or he would destroy them all. Founder N had no other choice, and handed back over the power. The 10th Legion used magic to teleport all the members back, and stood by themselves in the void. They had nothing else to do now, other than find Deodar Clips Everett, and perhaps recruit new members on the way. As their first task, they went back to the universe with the city and ocean where they ended up after fighting Aggregate. They went out to the sea where Deodar Clips Everett was revived, and by looking back in time, they saw him. They followed his location in Hip, but it wasn't especially useful, as all he did was venture to another universe, absorb some things, and teleport away. They still went to this universe in case they could find anything. On the way, they had an idea. They gave Hip true sentience and life, letting it be an official member. After arriving in the universe, they saw that he had left a path of destruction. Whenever Sir Jamaican Tide Pod in his different forms and legions had absorbed universes, they still let the universes exist within them. Deodar Clips Everett, however, had absorbed the most powerful parts of the universe, and completely destroyed the rest. They didn't know what to do, but suddenly received a telepathic message from Thuotes. They teleport there, and saw the members of Thuotes. At first, they thought the members wanted a rematch, but that was not the case. Apparently, they had been watching Deodar Clips Everett. They would have killed him, as he did pose a threat to the Sephuverse, but the spell that Aggregate used also transferred all of Aggregate's power into him, though it did take some time to activate. Once it did, it was too late, as the power was too much for Thuotes to damage him remotely, and going in would be too risky. However, they did manage to secure a tracker on him. This was still active, but strangely, Deodar Clips Everett had gone somewhere beyond the tracker's range, which shouldn't have been possible. They gave the 10th Legion the last known location of Deodar Clips Everett, which the 10th Legion teleported to. Upon teleporting here, the 10th Legion realized that they were outside of the Sephuverse itself, resting in the final void which stretched limitlessly beyond the Sephuverse. They were horrified, as even despite their power, this area was so harsh and extreme that they started to deteriorate just by being here. They desperately searched around, as it was also too much for them to teleport back. They saw nothing, and began to slowly disintegrate into the void. Suddenly, they were whisked away and brought to an area where they were stable once more. They looked up, and saw Darpamoril. Before they could even say anything, Darpamoril began to communicate with them. He said that he saw them dying and saved them, as he needed them. Apparently, he witnessed Deodar Clips Everett come out to the final void, and then chant a phrase that was carved onto his arm. This phrase allowed one to teleport to the realm they were in now, known as the Chazcam realm, as it was inhabited by Darpamoril and Lanrit's primordial species, the Chazcams. Due to the spell that blocked Darpamoril's power from Deodar Clips Everett, there wasn't anything he could do, but he did know where Deodar Clips Everett went. After arriving here, Deodar Clips Everett went to a secret area where Lanrit previously resided.